I just checked Rebel Moon. They do not have a verified score. Yeah. Like if you go to Wonka, you'll see the verified score. There's no verified score for Rebel Moon.
Well, looking at this, I want to go to Voltaire first, and we'll just recap because I'm going to clip this part out. Voltaire, looking at this, do you think this is overly harsh? I know you haven't seen it for your first, you're going to judge for yourself, but this seems overly harsh to me personally. That just I got to throw that in there. And do you think critics have a bias against Zack Snyder, and why?
Critics have a bias against streaming service movies. This movie does not release on Netflix until the 22nd. So these audience scores that are in there now, these people must have gone to the theater. How else did they see it?
Or they are lying and didn't see it.
Or they're lying.
I mean, you've got it was proven that Snyder they were using bots to make the things trend. I wouldn't put it past.
Listen, if it was bots, well, Joe, Zack Snyder came up with the perfect response to bots. He's like, "Oh, that's smart of them because the industry uses bots." Joe, Hollywood uses bots for marketing and promotion. Everyone uses bots on the internet.
So you use bots to artificially make it look like people are interested.
So does Hollywood. So does Hollywood.
How?
Marketing, a lot of these marketing firms. I'm not saying everyone does. A lot of this marketing stuff does.
Marketing.
They hire marketing firms, and then the marketing firms, to make themselves look better, to show they have more engagement, they use bots.
Yeah, but that doesn't do any good. I mean,
I'm just saying.
That doesn't mean that you get money.
Regardless, though, 250, I don't think there's being a lot of bots being used. That's really, I believe, most of these are legit in this circumstance because of the low amount of ratings so far from the audience. 250, I probably know 250 social media people that like Snyder that went to see the premiere in LA and New York. It's very possible.
And I'm not saying you're wrong, Joe, but everybody, whenever they see an audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, if it doesn't fit their narrative, it's bots. You know what I mean? I'm going to take it for what it is. And when I see this level of divergence between the critics and the audience,
that's not a lot of audience score yet. It's not.
For me, there is no narrative. For me, it's just a blanket statement. If I see a verified audience score, I trust it's legit.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't mean I'll agree with it. Doesn't mean I'll agree with it.
Oh, I would always prefer.
If there is not a verified audience score,
there's no way to verify it on streaming yet. At least I don't know of a way to verify it. You'd have to be logged in on Rotten Tomatoes to see. There's just no way to do it. But you're right. I do put verified above unverified. But this, like, if there was 1,000 or 2,000 reviews, I'd be like, okay, there's something funny here. 250 is nothing. But here's what DL. But now you said. Voltaire, you believe they have a bias against streaming versus theatrical, but what about Zack Snyder himself? In the history of Zack Snyder in interacting with fans, I think there's a lot there, me personally, but what do you think, Voltaire?
I think there's something there. I know that the greater public maybe doesn't know about all this Snyder stuff, but these critics know about it, you know? Yeah,
and they were actually, a lot of these critics do actually have sources. A lot of these scoopers do have sources, Joe. And they were led to believe by Warner Brothers themselves, no, it doesn't exist, because that's what the information they were getting from their sources. They were all telling them.
What doesn't exist?
The Snyder Cut.
Well,
this goes way.
It didn't exist.
Oh my goodness! Because it wasn't finished, is what you're going to
say.
It's a cut that exists. It doesn't mean it's a finished cut, right? We're going to have this argument.
It wasn't a releasable cut. There was no version of the Snyder Cut that could have been. So yeah, that was completely correct.
You're skirting the actual. Whatever it existed, and people acted like it wasn't there. The critics, a lot of the people in media,
but it wasn't.
Okay,
that's the point.
There was some version of it, Joe. Come on, there was.
Yeah, but nothing releasable.
Does it say? You're playing games here, Joe. This is
obvious. This is so game.
No. You are playing a game. Did I say the Snyder Cut, the finished cut existed? No.
But you can't release an unfinished cut.
That's not. Did they say release the finished cut? They said release the Snyder Cut as is was the first hashtag. Whatever it was, release it as is. They didn't say it was finished.
Release a work print.
But you can't call a work print a cut, Joe. Come on. We're playing games here, aren't we? You can't call
like you are. I'm stating facts.
No.
It's still a cut.
There was a cut,
a working
It
cut.
was an unfinished cut, but
Yes.
there was the foundations of a cut.
Yeah, and nobody
But you want to call it a work print
denied
and not a
that.
cut.
Everybody knew there was a work print.
Yes, they did.
No, nobody did. Everyone said there was no releasable cut of the film. It's like John Campea often said, there's apples in the bag, but there's not a watermelon in the bag. Everybody knew there were apples in the bag.
No,
but that was a bad analogy. He should have said there was
no there were lots of people that went on record it doesn't exist. Lots of people.
Didn't.
It did. Oh my God. We're never going to get anywhere tonight. I love you, though. I love you. But
believe me, Warner Brothers would have loved if it existed because they wouldn't have had to spend like $7 million on it.
70.
Whatever it was.
Yeah, so that's to finish it, but the cut was the foundation of the cut was there.
Yes,
I'm bringing this up to show you. I hate this movie, but the professional critics
people are
using
a
positive score.
Yeah, people are using this to say that there's not a bias there. I think is that potentially why you're bringing it up too? Well, how could there be a bias if they gave 72% to Zack Snyder's Justice League?
Yeah. And that's not.
I still think it's there.
It doesn't stop there either because hang on a second.
Did they give Army of the Dead? I'm curious. Okay.
Army of the Dead
score for Army of the Dead.
Yeah, another positive score.
That's surprisingly positive for that movie.
So the last two Snyder movies got positive scores. So and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think his Dawn of the Dead was fairly well received. So
that was pre-Sucker Punch. I'm telling you, I've been following him for quite some time. After Sucker Punch, they said, I don't like the way he treats women characters. Why would he do this with the original story? They really turned on him after that.
Don't forget, it wasn't just Sucker Punch. They didn't like Watchmen either. I liked Watchmen.
Watchmen's great.
Watchmen. Oh, actually, I am wrong. Damn, I thought Watchmen was critically panned. That got a 65%. So it looks like most of his movies have gotten fresh scores.
Okay.
Well, in any event, we're speculating without seeing the movie. Now, anybody, look,
this seems harsh. This seems harsh from the trailers. I don't know for sure till I see it. This seems overly harsh. Like, based on other movies that have come out this year that have been fresh, this is ridiculous to me.
Yeah, Max, can you read some of the top critic reviews? Do you mind doing that like you do sometimes?
Sure.
I'm curious what their complaints are because it's too harsh. And I mean, I never trust the
based on what we've got this year, like other movies that we've got that ever released at theaters, like it's like even the Flash.
24 is a complete stinker. There's no way this is a 24. There's just no way it's a 24 based on what I've seen of Zack Snyder's work and the trailers. I just can't believe it's a 24. Like 24 is a virtually unwatchable movie.
Yeah. That's like Catwoman levels or something.
Yeah, there you go.
Actually, I'll tell you, it wasn't this is part one. There's going to be a part two.
Yeah.
But wasn't this conceived as one movie and then he decided to split it in two?
He before he filmed it, he said, I would rather not cut this down. Netflix, what I could do is do two movies. Yeah.
Okay, see, that to me is a red flag right there.
He always
because
that's
one of the biggest problems with the Snyder Cut of Justice League was it was overly long and self-indulgent. And the fact that he has a 4-hour-long Rebel Moon now tells me he's still being overly long and self-indulgent.
Well, this is, there's a 2-hour cut. And this is Zack Snyder. If you don't like long cuts, you might not like you might not just like what he's about. This is basically what he's about right now. He likes the long cuts. He likes to keep everything in. He likes to film a lot of extra action, extra scenes. This is part of his charm to his fan base.
He's an auteur.
Yeah. So this is part of his brand, is really diving deep into the story and making a long director's cut. So I think if he would have just cut it down, that wouldn't be Zack Snyder,
Maybe show top critics instead of all critics, by the way.
Well, we could,
All right.
We'll see. Hold on. Top critics. Okay. All right, that's fine. Valerie Complex, Deadline Hollywood Daily, another Zack Snyder movie. That right there shows bias to me.
Is that,
the way just the way it's
Is
approached.
that really
Another
her
Zack
name?
Snyder.
Is her name really complex?
That's a great name.
That's a yeah. That's
Am
a
I
fantastic-
reading too
I
much
don't
into
believe
that,
That's gotta be
Voltaire?
like
The
a
way
fake
it
name.
starts. Another Zack Snyder. That almost like, oh, another Zack Snyder.
It's an interesting way to start a
Yes,
review.
yeah.
But you're reading half the sentence. It's another Zack Snyder movie that deals with same old issues.
What does that mean, though? What does that mean? What same old issues? Hero
production
journey?
values with scatterbrained, incoherent storytelling. I feel like a broken record.
There you
What
go.
does that mean? Does that mean all his movies have the same issues and have crappy production and
Yeah.
incoherent story? I don't agree with that. Right off the top, I don't agree with.
I mean, that's her right to her opinion, but ultimately, I think to me, this is like proven there's a bias there. This just doesn't like Zack Snyder. Okay.
But is that a bias? I mean, like if you don't like
we all
someone's
have
work,
some level of bias. We all have some. We're not all completely,
Well, let me put it this way. I don't like Wes Anderson. People love Wes Anderson. I don't like Wes Anderson.
I love him.
It took me 3 or 4 of his movies before I realized I didn't like Wes Anderson. Does that mean I have a bias against Wes Anderson, or that I just didn't like his work? I mean, I don't know.
He's the one that
that means you go into the movie saying, "Oh, here we go, another Wes Anderson film."
Yeah,
because that's a great example, Joe. Because Wes Anderson has some traits that because all great filmmakers, you see the work, like they create their world, and you see that carry over to other movies. So if you go in there thinking, "I don't like how Wes Anderson does movies," oh, here's another Wes Anderson movie with his quirky characters and his, doing their little soliloquies. You're going to go in there with a preconceived notion, and that's kind of what this lady or this person did.
Hey, if anyone, even on the panel, please thumbs up the video, because I didn't got short notifications here because my dog's not feeling well, and wasn't even sure it's going to go live. But that's the way it's starting out is not really based on it's not even talking about this certain projects. It's just it's reviewing Zack Snyder as a whole already before you even get to the and she says it follows incoherent story,
quality production values, meaning there's good production values, but Snyder screwed it up with incoherent storytelling. That's essentially what she's saying. But okay, that's one.
William Bibbiani, a hugely expensive but uninspired Star Wars knockoff with some thrilling action sequences and some truly ugly moments that taint the entire thing.
Now, what does that mean? Let's read that. Let's read into that. Some truly ugly moments. Does he mean bad scenes, or does he mean stuff that he doesn't agree with or he thinks was offensive?
Grace was going on about the sexuality in here. I'm like, what?
I mean, we know right off the bat that he's right when he says Star Wars knockoff, because we know for a fact it was supposed to be a Star Wars movie. So that's accurate.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, that part, whatever. Okay, but you're going into this movie knowing that second part, though, some truly ugly moments. It implies to me that there was stuff that
Grace thought it was better. Grace said it was better than she was expecting, but then she had some concerns with some of the, sexuality and also some of the
better
violence
than she was expecting. I thought, isn't she like a big Snyder fangirl? Like I thought she loved all of his stuff. That's the impression I always got from her.
Okay, she just liked some of his DC stuff.
See, if what Degrassi's saying is correct, like by quote unquote problematic scenes, that's what bothered this guy.